everybody. This is Smokin G Sharp. I'm coming in on a fine Monday afternoon to talk about 1860. Yep, I'm taking us through the history books, everybody. What fun, what joy, right? Hold on, I got to get everything set up before I can start this. As you know, I've got to have it all in line, and you might hear a double. Oh, we got it. We got it. Okay, so yeah, I am looking into the past. I may have Robert from Milky Way Soul Tribe showing up. I don't know. Sometimes you'll. Oh, there he is. Hello, Robert. And we are live. I didn't mean to jam you like that.
Oh, wow. Okay. Am I in?
Yes, you're in and we're live.
We're live. Hey, how about that? I'm right on time then.
I'm keeping Robert on his toes.
Absolutely. Just give me a second here. I got to get my customary hat on. And here we go. All set for the day. We got stuff going on. I'm sorry I'm running late. I got such a good presentation here for us and everything. I got lots of stuff. We got so much stuff happening. And of course, we're going to be talking about 1860. And that was such a year. Things were really coming together. And it all started out, we were finishing up with the Revolutionary War had ended. The United States was the United States. It was really being something. And now it was time to expand the country. And they were gaining states. The United States had purchased Florida from Spain. They had also started expanding with the Louisiana Purchase. Lewis and Clark had went out west in their 1803 and 1804-5 adventure for Thomas Jefferson. Through all of this, they realized that the country was really huge. And sorry about the dogs barking. I don't know what they're barking at. They were really good a little bit ago. But the country was really, really huge. And it was time to expand. And as they were getting going, there was conflicts. There was the War of 1812, which, was kind of one of those it was kind of like a leftover of the Revolutionary War. And of course, we won that. And I mean, it would have been really hard for England to take over. It really would have, because they're so far over there. We're really getting established now, and you got to, and that's the same thing that keeps us not having war in our country right as of today, because we have that big boundary of ocean. Anybody that comes over literally has to sail, across that ocean, bring your army with them, and then invade on your shores, and that kind of keeps the armies at bay, if you want to say.
Yes.
Don't you agree?
Yes, Mexico is our biggest threat as far as border invasion. That's the big one. And to bringing it forward to 2023, what's happened since 1860, Mexico now, as we know, is basically ran by cartels, and the United States does a great handshake with them. Drugs come in because, hey, it's part of the action, man. And hey, let's face it. And but they have a handshake going on, but yet the cartels could turn on a dime.
Oh yeah, they could become something else. But here's the thing: back in 1860, let's see, how do I want to put that? We were having the battle with Mexico. and we were doing the Mexican-American War. Okay, kind of a cartel thing there too, but the Mexicans were creating a stir for us too. And maybe you didn't know, but they at that point had outlawed slavery. Because the Pope said slavery is bad. So
Right.
what do you think they're going to do? They're going to say, sure,
highly Catholic down there. Yes,
we're gonna outlaw too. That's just the way it is. And so they did. And so the southern states, as you got it kind of up on your map there, those southern states in green, those people would just run off and head to Mexico, and they're free. And you can't cross the border and go hunt your slave again. You know what I'm saying? So that was creating quite a problem. And the cotton gin had just kind of been invented. It hadn't really caught on. There was about 4 million Black American or Black slaves, you should say. They weren't Americans at the time. I don't know if you can call them Americans at that time because they were being slaved over here. The thing is, there was about 4 million of them. They were being used to pick cotton, do the work, housework, all kinds of things like that, whatever you can imagine. We were under pressure from Mexico and things like that to free the slaves in the first place. It was going to come out sooner or later, and the slaves would have ended up being free. It was just that they wanted to do it fast.
Yes. And I just want to interject here. They needed funds. And as you can see where the territories are at the time, they needed funds. So they went to basically what's now known as Nevada and said, give us your silver. And if we win the war, we'll make you a state. And Nevada indeed did that. And it's called the Battle-Born State. And so a lot was on the precipice of this, basically from 1859 to 1865. A lot happened.
Oh, yeah. Well,
go ahead.
It was true that a lot was happening at that point with the slave states. They were the Union, the northern half wanted to create a bigger tax also, and the southern half didn't want to pay this tax. In the north, you had all the industry, and in the south, you had farms. You had cotton farms and corn and beans and tobacco. So you got this huge farm, and now you're paying all these taxes. You're not wanting to pay all those taxes. You see what I mean? Because you're a farmer. I mean, even nowadays they give all those farmer breaks, but they just didn't do it back then.
Correct.
And they were mad.
And that generation still had a taste of the Revolutionary War era, where they had to pay tolls and taxes to the lords and barons of the districts before they could even plant or own something. So they really did not want a repeat. Which here, let's bring it to 2023. Are we not overtaxed, everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Robert. I'm just interjecting.
Oh, no. Please do.
You're great on that era. I mean, I have picked the perfect person for this video because he is great in this era.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely full of this era for being honest. I tell you, my whole life it seems somebody tells me, "Hey, why do you study this stuff?" And I says, because what happened in the past will happen in the future, only in a different way. And it's always the same in some instance. These things never change. We are always on that circle, or the cycle, I should say, the cycle. And we had besides that, we had all these famous people around that time. because of the expansion to the west. And I got some pictures here I would like to show. Please. And we can kind of move on with that. Let me share screen and see if I can do this.
Hello, Scotty boy, Mike and Krista. Thanks so much for coming in.
Oh, well, Scotty boy. Scotty boy is he's going to be famous here pretty soon someday. You know that? He went ahead and I started a new channel where I've been doing news. And
yes, I catch your shorts.
Yeah, my shorts. And he did the name of that. So there you go. Scotty boy is the inventor of the name of Stupid Talk and Stupid Talk Daily. And he is. But okay, I got to get this one up here. I got to start somewhere. Well, let's start with the expansion. And then we'll go to famous people. I got all these famous people. And
okay, while you're looking at that, let me talk a little bit about the cotton gin.
Yes.
It was, here I have it set up, I think. Okay, yes, I do. While you're doing that, I'm just going to present something really quickly here. The cotton gin, as you can see, it was invented actually in 1794. Well, just basically just touching the 1800s. Mm-hmm. But by the 1850s, it revolutionized cotton. It was America's biggest export. They were making money hand over fist with this. And this leads up to the Civil War because they're making all this money. So now the government wants some of that. So as Robert said, they started wanting to tax you for this, that, and the other. Head taxes. By the way, I can get back to that one. But everything they could think of to get some money out of this. And you started having this pull away from a republic to a democracy. Okay.
Mm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, I got my thing up here. And we will get to that screen. And now, there we go. Okay, here's our big map. I think you got to hit the button. I'm like, it comes.
I'm
there you go. All right, you're driving the bus today. Usually, I'm the one that's running around trying to click the right button.
Hey.
But it's all right. But anyway, what happened is this guy, John Brown. As you were saying, he kind of started this ruckus with all of that nonsense. People were going west, and he started this in Missouri, and it carried over. And South Carolina was the first to secede, and the war was kind of on at that point. But what led up to that, like I said, was the Mexicans. They were fighting with Texas. We beat them there. The slaves, now Texas was indoctrinated into the states, and the people were, sliding across and going into Mexico and becoming free. And remember that in 1848, California had the gold rush, and you can see, and that became a state in like 1850. And of course, people were pouring out there. They found good land in Oregon. I think you're from Oregon or Washington originally, right?
Correct. Oregon got statehood in 1859. And yes, it was because of the fertile growing land and trees. Mm-hmm. Don't forget, a lot of wood.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a lot there. And besides that, people were pouring from east to west. And they were looking for that gold. And of course, as you know, if they couldn't find gold, well, you're going to just start settling down. You ain't going to travel all the way back out east just because, right? So you settle in, you have a farm, it's good weather, good climate, and so forth and so on, which leaves this big area in the middle here, empty. And as you can see down here, this part right in the center is Oklahoma. It's called Indian Territory, and it was controlled by the Confederacy in 1860. And they were trying to encourage the Indians that were there to fight alongside the Confederates. The Indians, they weren't too keen on fighting for either side. They had their fill of fighting. Remember, they were out west or out east, and during the time that Jackson was president, he gathered up all these Indians throughout the East Coast and marched them over to Oklahoma, establishing that whole state area pretty much as a reservation for the different tribes, figuring that
Wow.
we're going to get rid of them. Remember the Trail of Tears? And
Oh,
literally, it didn't
yes.
matter if you conform to society or not. You're an Indian, you're getting packed up and marched out. They took the Indians, everything from Florida all the way up the coast, marched them all to Indian territory right here. And
Wow.
this was even before that. Okay, well, we're going to go to another ones, but um, if you were out and look at here, so we got in 1860, they'd already selected the Indian as a part of our coinage. So it was contemporary society. Things were definitely changing. We were trying to connect the East and West Coast through things like the Pony Express. Um,
Yes.
and as the ponies were riding, and as fast as they were riding, and remember, this was to get your letter there in like 7 to 10 days, I think it was. It was really fast. They would have people along the trail, literally, and the rider would come along. And this is kind of a bad interpretation because they wanted young children, like you know, so they were light to carry the load.
Oh, small
You know,
people and young. Okay, got
yeah.
it.
So like if you
Wow.
were between 10 and 15, you were in. And so this guy is like you wouldn't see adults. The adult might be holding the horse, but the little kid would be riding. And you'd have
Interesting.
yes, light,
Yeah.
light, light, and
And they're resilient at that age. You know what I mean?
yes,
You can ride a horse for 8 hours when you're 15, but do not do it over the age of 55, I tell you.
yes, absolutely. Guys like this guy. This is Buffalo Bill Cody. When he was a young kid of 12 to 15, he became a Pony Express rider.
Nice.
And of course, he became an Indian fighter and a scout and all these other things along the way. You guys, some people might recognize him. He became pretty famous. He became a buffalo hunter and a trapper and things like that throughout his life. Here's something in 1860 that made the turn for most of the fighting. And this was like the Henry rifle was being invented. Now, not everybody would have one because most people still were using black powder guns.
Single
Uh,
shot. Yes.
Single shot. This here gun revolutionized everything, meaning it could fire, a half a dozen shots, anything, 10, 12 shots. I forget how many it was. But you had all these shots, and just by using the lever, you could, shoot, 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 shoot.
Yeah.
And they also had revolvers being
Rovers.
developed at the time. And these, this was, 1840s, 50s, 60s. They were just starting to get popular at this point. Otherwise men didn't carry this type of a revolver on your hip. And it was amazing where you could shoot off multiple shots. Whereas the bad guy or whoever it was would say, oh my gosh, uh, oh, he shot his one shot. Now we can go. Right?
Right, exactly. Hey, and even bringing it to 2023, is it not true? The gun, that shoots the longest usually can win the battle.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. You know, it's always the guy with the better weapon.
yeah.
So a cavalryman or a cowboy or whoever is out west, he's going to be carrying a sword. In 1860 it would be common to be carrying a sword and a pistol and a maybe even a rifle, but more than likely he would still have a black powder gun. And here's a picture of an Indian. If you would see an Apache Indian at that point in time, he may be carrying, a Spencer rifle, shooting a single shot, a black powder gun, or he might even have one of these. But that might be farther down the line because, like I said, they didn't really get popular until they couldn't produce them fast enough because they were just invented, and then the war happened. And even the guys in the Civil War didn't have them. They were still
That's
using
correct.
black powder and
Yes.
single shot.
Musket loading, black powder, single shot, which
Yes.
sometimes could even literally backfire, on you
Yeah.
if
Oh yeah,
you
it
load
could
it wrong.
kill you or whatever, blow your hands off or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had guys like this. This is Kit Carson, believe it or not. And you can see he's carrying a black powder gun. He was born in, as like it says, the country was expanding. He was born in Boonesboro, and we all know who Daniel Boone is. Boonesboro, Kentucky, as a young kid of like 10 or 12. He was sent to be to learn how to do the saddle trade, and he said, "Heck with this." He left his apprenticeship and ran away to join a wagon train, where he ended up joining and becoming a trapper. And he was a pretty good trapper, and he had his own company and such and such. And then when trapping was done in like the 1840s, the beaver were pretty much diminished out west. The rendezvous were done. He did a little more trapping or whatever, but then it was time to fight Indians, guide settlers, and that's what he did, expanding the west to east, or east to west, and became an icon. And in the end, he was employed by the military to map out areas, fight the Navajo. He was a big Navajo fighter, go to speak, for that. Another thing that was going on, and you'll recognize this. Look at this. It's a big, giant boat. And it's this transition period between the sailing ships, which you can see this little sailing ship down here.
Yeah,
and
that's
this massive, massive ship with multiple steam stacks.
Ocean ship. Yes.
And these were now becoming
Common.
the thing. Well, they were just starting out there because Fulton had started, and he invented the steamship for commercial use, and then it became a commercial use. Like you said, you could power this gigantic, enormous ship versus this ship here with sails. And so that's what made things way different, of course. And of course, they had things like during the Civil War, the Mermac, the Cumberland and the Mermac, or whatever it was, that were steel-sided ships fighting
yes. Yes, they were like kind of above board submarines, and they were steel on top, and they shot cannons and stuff, and they were called Ironsides.
Yes,
and when I was in the military, I was in the 3rd Armor Division, and that was what we were. We were called the Ironsides from the Civil War.
Oh,
is that trippy? Yeah,
that is pretty cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the reason they could have those is because they could be powered by steam.
Yes.
And because you wouldn't be having a mast up there, like the War of 1812. Just a tidbit of information: the British fleet was defeated because during the fighting, all their masts had been shot out, and so they had no power to move their ships. And if anybody wants to know, the masts are these big stick things here that hold the sails. And once your sailing power is gone, you're dead in the water. You can't do anything.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I didn't know that's how they took them out. But our Navy, the United States Navy, really grew in that period. They were the staple of our protection.
Oh yes, it did. They got mad because what was happening during the War of 1812 is the British were confiscating our ships. It was a roundabout between the French and the British and us. And this one said you can't trade with that one, and that one said you can't trade with this one. And the next thing you know, they're boarding ships and confiscating stuff, and it was a real mess. And finally, they said no more.
Yeah.
But and so the war was on. But if you were back in those days in 1860s, you may see a woman walking around, and she would be in a large dress as of such.
Yes.
But
They were called Southern belles for a reason. They
oh
look
yes,
like a bell.
they did.
Yeah.
That was the fashion. And if you've seen the heel of that woman, oh, and oh my gosh, your day was made. It's been as much as her being undressed in front of you.
No
Oh,
kidding. Can you
we,
imagine all the layers underneath these garments though? Oh my gosh. I mean,
yeah.
it was like what
What
I
a chore.
it's crazy. It's crazy what they put on to get all poofy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But if you've seen a guy, he would be looking more like this, with
Yes.
a top hat, a decent size a suit, especially out east. There was a lot of difference between the out east and the
The
west, or
West.
frontier, you could call it, um, because in the frontier, you had people, and they didn't particularly dress quite the same, as you can see by this guy. His hair's not made. He's this here is Liver Eaton Johnson. This would have been like the Jeremiah. You ever watch that movie Jeremiah Johnson?
Yeah, that he got pretty rugged at the end.
Yes,
Yeah.
he was known as a crow killer. There's a whole story behind it, and they called him Liver Eaton Johnson. But this is the guy. Other famous people who explored the West, helped the military, guided people. They became trappers, and so this is Jim Bridger. He was a trapper, and in the early 1800s, I think 1812, he was born somewhere around then, and he went out west and trapped beaver and things like that. Buffalo hunter. Then, when all that dried up, he became a guide, a scout, and he helped people go across from one end of the country to the other. Time after time after time. Eventually, his eyesight got really bad, and he scouted for the military. And he was quite the famous guy. He has multiple areas, forts named after him.
Hmm.
Passes and things. He's quite the deal. But as you can tell, his dress and the dress of the Eastern guy is a lot different. So that
Oh,
was
yeah, functional, functional out.
functional.
We still are, people
Yeah,
I think dress a little better in different areas of the country.
yes.
Out here it's like t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. But with pictures like this, of people going west, uh, you would be inspired. Oh, doesn't this look great? People are just
Yes.
moving through the mountains. I want to go to new and adventure lands beyond our reach. Ain't that wonderful? And of course, the government wanted to get in on that too, and they contracted with the railroads in 1860s from 1860 to 1869 to build these railroads. As you can see, the North had a lot of railroads, more industrial. You could go, and these ones with the spotted dots are the ones that needed to be connected, and they were going from east to west. And if you can remember, they had this was a little bit later in the 1869 when they had the meeting of the railroads and the
They
Golden
finally,
Pike.
yes, they finished it.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And that was wonderful. I mean, but it's just telling you that this technology was advancing, and people were coming from all over the place to work hard to connect the country.
Oh, they were definitely expanding. Oh, they had every intention to take all those territories and eventually make them into states.
Oh,
They
yes. Yes.
they're just
Absolutely.
waiting for the people to show up.
Speaking of the railroads, okay. So this is a tidbit that really got me, and I couldn't believe, I was just amazed. On July 1st, 1862, I ain't going to read this. The second year of the Civil War, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Pacific Railroad Act in 1862. There's another thing that made him kind of famous. The government promised each company 16,000. This is a lot of money. This had been
That
like
was
a
a
quarter of $1 million today.
easily or more.
Yeah,
It was a lot of money.
$16,000 per mile, or about, well, this was, I don't know when this article was printed, but 461 million or 100, can't even talk. $461,000 for laid track down the foothills, and they paid the government paid $32,000 a mile, or about 920. Wow, that's almost $1 million.
Almost $1 million today. Yeah.
For land in the foothills, which is amazing. I mean, so no wonder why they could hire all those people and pay them. And people were moving out west. Hey, it's like me. I got an oil job because they were paying good. They needed help. They'll pay you whatever, and you leave your job, your home, your family, and you come out here. It's the Wild West, and you do your thing. And people were doing that. But what happened was these companies got land grants. The Conquerors granted the railroad companies 6,400 acres of government-owned lands for every 10 miles of laid track to help create
see,
yards. And
there's the rub right there. They gave this land to private railroad companies if they would do this.
Yeah, the amount of land that the two companies received from the federal government equated to about the size of Texas.
See it? Yes. Everything counts in large amounts.
Yeah. Between the state and federal government land grants, the two companies owned, this is a phenomenal number, 180 million acres of land by the end of the construction.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah, of course the railroads will go, yeah, we'll get right on it. My gosh.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money, and then the benefits on top. And I found out too that like these guys, these railroad barons, they didn't really do anything. They'd sign the contracts and stuff, and then they would contract out for all the stuff. Sure. And then when they paid out or they went defunct, they kept all the land and things and sold it and made all the profits as a third party, and then let the railroad go under. So when it went belly up later on, because it seems like the railroads are always losing money.
Yeah, I have to question that. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, and also maybe they give up the railroad, but they don't give up the land. And then that's your generational inheritance.
Well,
you get a piece of the action every time a train goes over. That's
all. As you can see, they gave them this land for the different side tracks and things like that.
Sure.
But what happened is they built towns there. Now, a chunk of land in town sells for a heck of a lot more money than a chunk of land in the middle of Timbuktu. And when you only need that little strip through an area, you sell off the other land that you're paying little next to nothing for, or you got for free, and then you have this chunk of land and you sell it off and you pocket all that money.
You could be discretionary about what parts you keep.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
there's a lot of angles, but let's face it, those railroad barons became generational billionaires today. Their families are still, that's what I'm saying. They always get a piece of the action no matter how you look at it.
Yeah, they were very sneaky. If anybody has questions, you just look that up. It's a fascinating story.
I bet.
Fascinating. So what would you get when you were back in those days? There were few labor laws in the United States at the time. The average worker worked 60 hours a week, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, maybe with Sundays off. Some common occupations, however, earn much more. Listen to this. A mason earned 22.5 cents an hour. You got $13.5 a week, $700 a year. Blacksmith, 18 cents an hour, made about $560 a year. Machinist, you'd think that'd be a good paying, 16 cents an hour, $960 a week, or $500 per year. Laborers, if you're just a general laborer, about 10 cents an hour, $6 a week, or $300 a year. I mean, come on, really? Oh,
But
you know,
but they but comparatively, you could go in and buy a dinner for a
yeah,
nickel.
yeah. Papers were a penny. A can of what you call it. And we'll get down to that in a second here.
Yes. Yeah.
Private and in the Union Army earn $11 a week, which is pretty damn good, considering that if you were just a general labor, you got $6, or if you were a machinist, $9, or if you're a blacksmith, $10. But here's the thing: what do the people in the Army get now compared to what they got then?
Yeah, I don't know what they get paid now. I couldn't begin to fathom, but it's always a lot lower than you think.
Yeah,
Even when
that's
you gain rank, if you're up there, a staff sergeant on up, you're still not making, you're making teacher wages. Does that make sense?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is if
Yeah.
you're a private in the military, you're not earning as much as a machinist, or
Right.
you're not making that much. But here, back in the day, being in the military, no wonder why people want to join the military. Uh, you're going to make a pretty good amount of money. Of course, you might get killed back then, really easy. A fireman earned 15 cents an hour, $9 a week. Wow. A carpenter earned 14 cents an hour. That's pretty good, 14 cents. That's right up there with the machinist, kind of. A farmhand's 8 cents an hour, 480 a week, 250 a year. Wow, your farmhand, you ain't getting paid nothing. More than that may not seem like a lot, but it's more than what a slave was paid. Ooh boy, the president, he only got $25,000 a year. Clothes, store-bought clothes were out of the question. But except for unless you were really wealthy, there were no mail order companies.
That's right.
Chicago, Montgomery Ward's, Chicago Sears catalog visits didn't start till 1872. Like I said, they had to connect the railroads, they had to connect all these things.
Transportation. Yes.
Yeah, you couldn't be living in the plains of Nebraska and order something online and get it delivered the next day.
No. Well, yeah, there, if you ordered something, it'd have to come over wagon, and that would be 3 or 4 months later. Sometimes they
Yeah,
did order things though and get them, you know,
yeah.
6 months later, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But all that stuff had to be. It was a whole different way of ordering because you didn't have an address living out on the plains or
No, no,
living at
women
a.
sewed.
Yes,
Women sewed.
they did.
Yeah.
And here it says instead women. No, they didn't even sew. Listen to this. They would buy cotton, make their own dresses right from the scratch. Let's buy some cotton. You can weave it into yarn and
Yeah,
then
we'll
make it
weave
into
it.
material and sew it and sew your own dress. There you go. A yard of fabric cost 10 cents. That's a whole day's labor. It took around 5 yards to make a day dress. Wow. A quart of firewood. Remember, they didn't have gas or oil to burn. A quart of firewood, still the primary method of heating homes, costs $7. How much wood is a cord? It's a lot. It's 128 cubic feet worth, enough to heat a home for about a month. So $7 to heat your house, but you're only paid like carpenter maybe $8 a week. So yeah, so maybe a week's work is almost a month's heating. And it's
Yeah.
crazy, isn't it? Let's go to the next bit. Um, Guns. Henry rifle, the first repeating rifle, brand new in 1860, cost $20, but quickly paid for itself with the free meat it could generate. Yeah, but
Mm.
$20 would be like, for some of these guys, it'd be 2 to 3 weeks of working for that $20. How crazy, you know? Whiskey, tub of cheap. Dog, shut up. Anyway, a cheap whiskey. Sorry if you can hear them; they're barking at
Oh
something.
yeah, I'm surprised mine aren't going off about this time of day.
Yeah, they're barking at the neighbor's dog. The Jim Beam costs 25 cents a gallon. Wow, you worked quite a while for that. A couple hours to get a gallon of whiskey. The Civil War started, demand increased, the supply decreased. The price of whiskey risen 14,000% to $35 a gallon. Holy cow. Can you imagine that? $35, you'd have to work, like a month and a half to get a gallon of whiskey.
Well, that's a lot of whiskey, though. I mean,
Yeah, a gallon, yeah, I guess. Pony Express was in service from 1860 to 1861. The original cost of the service was $5 per ounce of mail, payable in gold. Don't want to be taking that phony paper money, do you? A standard fee for seeing the town doctor, not including any medicine or surgeries, was $2. So I guess that's
yeah,
like,
doctors were looked at differently back then than they are now, unfortunately. That's all I'm going to say.
oh yeah. There was no recorded sound yet, so that nobody want to play music in your home. You have to buy a piano, costs around $200, or you could just get, a group of these guys together, and they could play a band full of songs, right?
That's right.
Uh,
Oh, I
but
wonder, I'd like to have heard that band.
yeah, people see, this is the era when people had to get together in order to create your own entertainment. You just didn't, you
Oh,
know.
yeah, no, back then, yeah, they had little theaters that probably traveled around a bit, or
Yeah.
something, but no, they didn't have near what we have now. We have a lot of distraction these days when it comes to television, the computer, so much, so much. And they were entertained sitting on their front porch,
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
telling stories,
Yeah.
talking and cooking. I mean, think about it. Most of your day is spent surviving or working somehow or another. Um, Here, if you had to get medicine, laudanum was a patent medicine consisting primarily of alcohol with 10% opium, and then they're talking real opium.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Back then it was different too with drugs.
And
Which,
yeah,
hey, we're going back to legal. Let's just bring that up to 2023 so I can compare here.
yes, go ahead.
The drugs were very loose back then. There wasn't a market so much as like an illegal cartel market. So they were just very loosey, lackadaisical. And I think we're almost going back to that again. They're legalizing some very heavy, strange drugs, and
Mhm.
it's coming over the borders.
Yeah,
And
well, back in the day, cocaine, all that's opium
yeah.
and stuff was the norm, and it was even in Coca-Cola, when
Oh,
it
yeah.
started out.
Edgar
Uh,
Allan Poe.
yes, exactly,
All of those guys, yeah.
and now it's like coming back. Like I said, everything comes in cycles. It's crazy, isn't it?
Is it weird? You're right. It not exactly, like they say,
Yeah,
it may, history may not repeat, but it sure rhymes.
it does. It
And
does.
I'm kind of noticing in our current day, we're kind of behaving a little bit like the generation back here. Just want to throw that in to the
Oh yeah.
audience.
Yeah, well, okay, so we got slaves are next. In 1863, one-third of the South's population was still slaves, and only wealthy could afford to own them. So it was kind of a wealthy thing. Starting price was $800 minimum. A male hand in his 20s would run about $1,500, and a skilled laborer, such as a blacksmith, would cost about $2,500. So, we've seen the wages. Yeah, you weren't poor and owned a slave. You
No.
had to be a rich person. $800, man, you could hire a whole group of guys to work for a long time, you know, at that rate. Housing, $2,500 rent on an apartment today may be considered reasonable, especially in some of these bigger cities. In 1860, that same amount would buy you a two-bedroom house in Brooklyn,
Wow.
renting instead of renting. A four-room house in most eastern cities ran $4.50 per month. Outside of the city, land costs around $3 to $5 per acre. So, in other
Wow.
words,
Yeah.
working all week, you could just buy 1 acre a week, and have money left over. Hmm. Groceries. Compared to the food we eat today, they didn't have that big a choice. Sorry, people. You couldn't go to town and get Cheetos. You couldn't go get your favorite hummus down at the grocery store, or some sliced meat at the right there and packaged up from Oscar Mayer, some hot dogs. You had to go buy. A lot of this was in bulk. Rice, 6 cents a pound. That's why I said bulk. Beans, 6 cents for a dry quart. Sugar, 8 cents per pound. Beef,
Wow.
9 cents a pound. Cheese, 10 cents a pound.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
looking at some of that because sugar has very much gone up. I don't know what it is a pound, but you'll fall over when you see it.
oh yeah,
Rice is about, depends what you buy, $2.50 to $3 a pound now.
yep.
Yeah. Oh, well, we won't even go with eggs. Come on.
Really, eggs, 20 cents per dozen.
Oh, yeah. And that was
Considering
expensive.
that, just up until, maybe year or two ago,
Hmm.
they were under $1.
You
So
could find a 99-cent dozen. Yes, you could.
yeah, so think about it. A dozen eggs really didn't go up that much.
No, you know what I speculate. I'm just saying, just guessing. The government puts subsidies on things. Farmers know this if you grow.
Mhm.
Um, they pay subsidies. And in turn, when that gets to the consumer, it's cheaper. I think personally that the government is going broke and it's quietly yanking out its subsidies for things. Let's take eggs, for example. They cut the subsidies in half. So now we're actually really paying the price of what eggs should cost without that assistance. Wait
Well, it
till
didn't help. It
gas.
didn't help that all the chicken farms burnt down too.
Yeah, I have a whole other kind of thought on that too. I don't want to get too tinfoil hat here, but yeah, I think that uh, we're being attacked. I don't
Mhm.
know right now. It could be anybody inside or outside of the country, but yeah, I think a lot of this stuff has two things going on. It's kind of cutting out some competition, I would call
Mhm.
it. And it's also scaring the bejeebies out of people. It's
Mm.
getting us into that fear mode. So I don't know who's benefiting on those two sides of all of that. But getting back to the cost of chickens and eggs, yeah, I think the subsidies are kind of quietly going away. That's just my thought.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah.
you know,
I
we,
wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I haven't researched it, but that is a very good explanation. It is.
yes,
It would make a
it's
lot.
better than yeah, it's inflation. Basically, it's disguised in our inflation.
Well, yeah.
Recently our gas has been going up. I think if they pulled the full subsidy out from under oil,
Mm.
oh my gosh, you think you're complaining now? Oh, let's try $8, $9 a gallon. Yes, they subsidize just about half of what we
Mm.
pay for here.
Oh
Just
yeah,
saying.
yeah. I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Like beef, 9 cents a pound, but here, what is a pound of ground beef going for? What, $5 or $6 a pound, maybe
Oh,
seven.
yes.
You
Yeah. Oh,
know.
wait. Yeah. I'd have to look. I haven't bought hamburger. Um, but just to give you an example here, I go to the deli and it's a prepared meat. It's a
Hmm.
pastrami.
Yeah.
Now, a pound of pastrami for me is close to, well, it's easily $13 a
Hmm.
pound,
Yeah. Yeah. It's
and
all
that's not much.
expensive.
Yeah. It's
Butter,
very
but
expensive.
things like butter and cheese. Butter is 16 cents a pound. Uh, Potatoes, 40 cents a bushel. Coffee. You probably drink some coffee, no?
Yes.
$1.20 a pound, which is
Yeah.
kind of expensive even for back then. But if you think about it, coffee didn't grow in the United States. They had to ship it in from South America.
That's right. And it was a specialty drink. They were more still on tea, I believe, back in the heyday.
Yeah.
They show the cowboys drinking coffee, but we don't know.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it was a very very much a specialty, like you said, to bring it up from South America, have someone roast it here and distribute it. It's not like every Starbucks on a corner today. So yeah, coffee relatively survived the
Mhm.
the costs. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, shipping, I think, went down. And therefore, otherwise, if you compared $1.20 a pound back then to what you can buy a pound of coffee now, really coffee is actually didn't go up that much.
That's what I'm saying. It really survived.
Yeah. But I
You
mean,
know, I think
No,
you're absolutely right. It's just so much demand and so much supply now.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I mean, it's I think it was all the travel in my eyes. We got one big event that happened in 1859 and will happen again. It's happened throughout history. And if you don't know what this was the Carrington event. The
Oh, that's
day
right.
that in 1859 that the sun shot off a big flare and all the telegraph lines went down and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And this guy, Carrington, um, we're going to read a little bit about him here. The Carrington event was a large solar storm that took place in the beginning of September 1859, which is almost 1860, just a few months before the solar maximum of 1860. In August 1859, astronomers around the world watched with fascination as the number of sunspots on the sun disk grew. Among them was Richard Carrington, an amateur sky watcher in a small town called Redhill, near London in England. On September 1st, as Carrington was sketching the sunspots, he was blinded by a sudden flash of light. Carrington described it as a white light flare. According to NASA spaceflight, the whole event lasted about 5 minutes. And another thing with Carrington is that they were saying, okay, so it shorted out all the telegraph wires and lines. But even the next day, there was so much electrical charge in the atmosphere that the telegraph operators said they could unplug the batteries and still send telegraph messages through the wires without using any any power, because the power, the air
Still
was
charged
so
in.
charged up. Yeah, ain't that amazing?
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah, what's amazing and scary at the same time is that um, when this was if this ever happens again, can you imagine with all that power in the air? It's going to short everything that's electronical that we have now. Anything with a transistor in it will be
Anything.
fried. Yes.
Robert, we're going back to getting our cotton delivered, and we're going to weave it and make our own clothes. No, seriously, it can just get that drastic. But you know what's amazing to me? I forgot about the Carrington event because I study, mud flood meltology.
Yeah.
Of a prior civilization being just totally melted somehow. It very well could have been one of these that lasted 8 hours or something. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Well, and nobody would know really what it is, because, like I said, if it wasn't for this, Carrington guy, um, people were in the dark. It's just happening. What's going on?
Right,
Oh my
right.
gosh. Can you imagine the people that were maybe having heart attacks or brain fog or, other things that may have been affected? They didn't even have tests for any of this stuff. There was no other electronic devices. So,
Yeah.
it was
It could have very
unknown.
well been running charges through things and being very staticky.
Yeah.
And people, and if you got a real, you have little static shocks, you touch
Yeah.
something and okay. But if you get a real one, sometimes it can about knock you over.
Oh yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's enough charge and whatever.
Well, and the thing is people weren't concerned about the static. They were looking up in the skies because the aurora, the northern lights, could be seen all the way down into the south. So the southern hemisphere, all the way down towards to Mexico, you could see the southern light or the northern lights. Because of the auroras and stuff. Because of this,
Right.
they just thought it was cool. Look at that. Hey, Martha, come out of the house and look what I see. Hey, we got a show in the sky tonight. They haven't invented television, but we can watch this.
Oh, no doubt. Even today, if a lot of people saw that event, we would freak out.
Yes.
It would be, yeah. And you're
Oh yeah.
right. All our stuff would go down, with that EMP, whatever. And that's all she wrote. And we'll all literally be in the dark for a while.
Yes, absolutely. So let's finish out with some famous people of the day. This here's Red Cloud. Now, he was running the Sioux tribes along with Sitting Bull and a bunch of the others. They were roaming the plains at the time. And during the 1860s, they had kind of made peace for a little while because the militaries was concentrated on fighting the Civil War, which we're going to get into a second. But they were fighting the Civil War, so they left the Indians alone for a good period. They made some treaties and said, okay, we're out of here. And the Indians had a good period for about 10 years as the eastern side of the United States was expanding and getting all industrialized, unbeknownst to them, as they lived on the prairies and the plains, shooting their buffalo and maybe, chasing off a few people here and there. But it was right after the Civil War that the Indians got a big, terrible, confrontation because, all these new guns that they had were trickling out there. They were amazed by that rifle that could shoot multiple shots, and they didn't have any. They were still, believe it or not, the Sioux Indians fighting Custer were still shooting. Most of them had arrows. They didn't even have guns yet. So go figure there. Hopefully you can name some of these figures. This here, yeah. This one here. Who do you know? Who's
that? Jefferson Davis.
That's right. That's Jefferson Davis, and he was.
Well, he was. Oh gosh, how was he connected? Jefferson Davis. I do not know that much about him.
Okay. Jefferson Davis was the president of the southern half of the United States when they broke away.
Oh, I see. I got you. He won.
Okay, famous guys in history. Who do you think this is? If you don't know, that's all right. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I want to. There's a couple of them in that era. I don't recognize him though.
Sam Houston, the founder of Texas. He battled the Mexicans and established one of the establishing guys of Texas, who ended up becoming a southern slave state, etc., etc. This guy, recognize this guy?
It looks like Grant.
Yes, Ulysses S. Grant before he grew the big tummy and became president.
Yeah. He was a heck of a general.
Yes. And then you got this guy. Who is this?
Oh, yeah. I know his face, but I can't put his... Oh, he's a Confederate. Yes. Lee.
Yes, Robert E. Lee.
Hey, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, this is fun. This is fun. Do you know who this is?
That's Custer.
Yes, and believe it or not, he fought in the Civil War.
Sure.
He went to, what's that famous college that they train all the military guys? I can't remember.
West Point.
West Point, yes. He went there with all these other generals, believe it or not. And, they were all being trained. And they came to the guys and said, hey, listen, you get, we're going to have Civil War. You can pick which side you're going to be on. If you're going to be on the Union side, stay here. If you're going to be on the Southern side, you better go over there, and some of them stayed and some of them went, you just doing your thing. And you'll know this guy, especially with the top hat on.
Oh, yeah. Unforgettable. Lincoln.
Yeah. And believe it or not, pictures were, just being developed, so
yes,
you
very primitive.
Yeah. And you could actually have a real picture like this of the president and have a real image instead of somebody drawing a picture.
Painting a picture.
Or painting, yes. So you have real pictures. It's amazing that, here, look, we're looking back into the past of 1860 to see exactly how this guy looked. Isn't that amazing?
And here we go again. Here's an era of technology really kicking off with a lot of machinery, photograph. Now bring it up to 2023. And what do we have? Machinery. And I mean, very soon here, we're going to have like holographic, who knows what,
The metaverse. We got that metaverse.
Metaverse.
What's his name's trying to develop? You just put the goggles on and you live in a whole different world.
Yes, absolutely. We're technology, is kicking us into a whole new era.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, think about it. When this guy was it? Yeah. No, no, he didn't invent that. But anyway, when these guys were inventing things like the phone and stuff like that, Graham Bell and the telegraph and stuff, they never thought of, hey, I'm going to invent the phone, and then someday, instead of talking to you on the phone like this, you're just going to talk to me face to face with a real picture, like FaceTime, and
Yeah.
let's FaceTime or Snapchat somebody, or like we're doing right now, Zooming them,
Yes.
or StreamYard, or whatever we're
I know.
on, and
We're
it's like,
thousands of miles away from each other, yet we're talking to each other like we're in the same room.
yeah, who would ever
You
thought?
know?
And then this guy here, one of the famous guys that
Oh
we,
yeah. Poor Tesla. He got taken and shaken.
yes, brilliant mind. We would not be here today if it wasn't for him and his inventions that really revolutionized the world, because of this guy here didn't like him.
Yes.
Thomas Edison, who thought he had it capped on DC power.
Correct. There you go. It was the battle of direct current versus alternating current, AC. Um, uh, DC power only goes so far and then it just starts falling off.
Yeah.
Tesla found out that if you put a gap in between the power surges alternating the current,
Mm-hmm.
those gaps keep pushing that energy forever and ever. It goes like umpteen miles down the road before it starts to fall off. And then he also came up with the repeater. It boosts it. The ohms
Transformer. Yeah.
transformer,
Yes.
and sends it on its way again. Yeah, he's the guy who's given us what we all have today in our homes, no
Yeah.
doubt.
Yeah.
And this guy here, you're right. He was petty and he was jealous, and he took a lot of Tesla's ideas and fought Tesla all the way because his good friends, the Rockefellers and all of them, got on his side, and there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, we already seen this guy. You know who this guy is, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
you
Buffalo
can
Bill.
say Buffalo Bill. I
Yes.
love him. I love
Yeah.
the boots.
Oh yeah, yeah. Can you imagine? There's your Western guy. In some ways, I wonder, did he invent all that Western-looking wear to look more Western, or did he, did they really, it's a confusion. And you can see this is a modern one. He's got his repeating rifle there, stuff like that. Here's an older one. He's got his 6 shooters. He's got his jacket with the fur jacket. You can see he's got fur here, the danglies, an older cowboy hat. This is when he's younger, I suppose. But that was the style, with the big mustache and the little beard kind of thing. Um, so anyway, and then of course we got Liberty Johnson. These guys tame the West. Well, there's many more of them. I just picked a few.
Sure.
You got Jim Bridger here. This guy did more to colonize the West and make pathways to California and Washington and Oregon than anybody else. And yet, when he was old and gray, he was going blind and kept saying, "I wish I had my eyesight. I'd still be out there doing my thing." you know.
Wow.
And then of course Kit Carson, who he was just it looks like he was a big guy. He's just a little guy. I guess he was like 5'2" or 4, somewhere around that.
Wow.
Just short, stocky, and tough as nails.
That's all it is. It's all in the mind.
Yes, literally, yes. And
Yes.
but that is pretty much
Excellent, Robert. And this is great. We've gone an hour, and thank you so much for showing up and doing this.
yeah, no
I,
problem.
I love this.
I was working on it right to the last minute. I'm like, oh crap! I'm clicking. I'm like, I got this and this, and I want to present all these things. I'm like a kid in a candy store with this, because I'm like, just I want to show all of it.
I'm a history geek. I am too. And I just want to roll it around. I do see the patterns and the cycles. And, we've done things before, nothing new under the sun. kind of deal. But
Yeah.
yeah, this has been great. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm going to rewatch this because I gleaned so much already today. I didn't even think about, the shipping industry back in the 1860s was very revolutionary for a lot of things. It's the foundation of what America was built on.
Well, yeah, and you don't realize that, like Fulton, even though Fulton didn't live in 1860, his invention that finally transformed everything, lived on in 1860. That's what powered those first river boats up and down the Mississippi, bringing goods from St. Louis all the way up north. That's the power that used, in the boats that carried people all the way around the Horn of South America and up all the way up to California. And because, going through those stormy seas, as you've seen, you could build them huge boats, go across the sea 10 times faster. You didn't have to rely on the wind. We're going east, and well, the wind ain't coming. Our trip just took 50 days longer than it should have.
Correct. And you could cut through storms much easier with more confidence because you are the power. You don't have to, yeah, it was just revolutionized a lot in that era. It's just unbelievable. And we benefit so much today from all of that, railroads and all. Well,
Yes.
I'm going to take it out here real soon. What you got to say at the end here?
Well, I am just thrilled that I could share this information, that people will hopefully pick up from there and say, hey, that sounded interesting. Anything that you heard today sounds interesting. Go look it up and be an investigator. Be your own Sherlock Holmes. I'm giving you the tidbit here, just the tip of the iceberg. And then you can go out and get all these books like I do, and read through them. And it's a world out there that's full of wonder that will spark your imagination and think about what happened in the past could happen today, only in a different way. But the question is, will you be prepared for that change?
That's the big question. The changes coming up. How will they roll? Boy, we live in interesting times. Well, anyway, thank you again, Robert, and thank you everybody for watching this show. And I hope you check me out again real soon. And please go over to Milky Way Soul Tribe. He has some great shows on just this kind of stuff, a lot of stuff. Well, anyway, you all take care and stay frosty.